Hello, welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to cover a topic that was brought up recently in a personal conversation, and I felt it needed to be addressed in a little more detail. And I don't believe it's been brought up before in other videos I've done or on the blog. So I wanted to, I feel it's important and I feel it needs to be addressed because it's part of the greater narrative of why I came out of the Pentecostal church I was in, which I have described before as a cult, and I still feel that's applicable. So a few months, or perhaps several months prior to leaving, we were doing a revival with a young preacher. Forget his name at the moment, but he was very loud. He loved to put the microphone right in his face and just turn up the volume. It was that type of person. So the point was, myself as well as several other people started wearing earplugs because it was loud to the point of being painful, and we just had to make it bearable by way of some good quality 32 decibel reduction earplugs, which just made it to the point where when he was preaching, it would be conversation level at that point. It would be much more tolerable, and you wouldn't have this kind of shell shock experience just having that blasted in your face. And interestingly enough, I realized it was more comfortable just to wear them, through the entire service. So I noticed a real change after first couple of nights of wearing those. I was starting to be able to pay attention to what he was really saying, and I was able to really pay attention to what was going on during the song service and during some of the altar calls. And for those in the religion, you're more familiar with those terms. It's a different world, let's just put it that way. For those that are not in it, you'll have to take our word for it that wearing earplugs makes a huge difference. It really does. But in being able to reduce the volume of this cacophony of noise, it was very much a release. It was like you could sit there and actually relax, listen to what was being said. You could listen to what was being presented in a logical way rather than simply getting caught up in the fervor. It's Pentecostalism has a lot of emotion, it has a lot of hyping up the crowd, psyching up the crowd. And so turning that volume down to an acceptable level completely changed how you responded in that environment. You think of like a sports game or a rock concert, the larger a crowd is, the larger the number of people that you have in that crowd, the easier it is for one person to control them with noise, with emotion, with various psychological means to get a certain reaction out of them. This is a well-known psychological fact. So by having earplugs in place, it completely changed the dynamic. In a very short amount of time, I no longer felt connected to what was going on around. It was like simply reducing the volume was enough to be more critical about what was being said, how it was being said, whether it made any sense or not. And I found myself very quickly realizing, wow, this is all very contrived. This is all very calculated. And it was a combination of that, realizing how much showmanship went into it. And I highly recommend, if you have not seen it yet, watch the documentary Marjoe, which is available on DVD, as well as I posted a link to it in the blog. It's a great documentary about how much of the preaching evangelistic fields are really quite fake and very much about showmanship. But this is, of course, typical of the evangelical Christianity's style. Anyway, the point was, really, it was a combination of two things. One, wearing earplugs put me more in a logical, critical mindset, and dealing with questions from a person we were teaching a home Bible study to, and looking for answers to talk to her about, it quickly became apparent that what I had been told my entire life was, in fact, not based on evidence or history or anything that could stand up to skepticism, but it was simply a very, very well contrived method of calculating and controlling people. But it had to be a combination of those factors. Having earplugs in seems like such a small thing. It seems like if you have a genuinely spiritual environment that is affecting the soul of an individual, wearing earplugs and simply reducing the volume should not make a big difference. And yet it did. And it shows how much of their service is a psychological effect that is designed from the outset to stir a certain emotion, to reduce someone's ability to think critically, perhaps. It is a sonic assault, which really seems quite dishonest, that if you don't have any substance, just crank up the volume, get people emotional, get people swept up in that, and yeah, that's what it took to get me out, was reducing that sonic assault and simultaneously being willing to be honest and ask the hard questions and be skeptical. And that was the whole story. And like I said, I have not covered that aspect of it in other videos. It was something, honestly, I didn't think about that much until long after the fact, but it makes a lot of sense now in retrospect. And definitely, I would say, to people that are still in that are still neck deep in that cult, in that environment, or other Pentecostal services, try it for a month. Try wearing earplugs for a month and see if you still feel connected to everything around you, and see what an immediate impact it has on your worship experience. It's quite shocking how effective that is. So that's it. That's all I had, guys. Just wanted to bring that up, go over it, put it on the record, because it is, I feel, a vital component to the overall, to the cult sensation, to getting out of it. It's very important to reduce their ability to control you with these group psychological techniques of enhanced volume and just sonic assault. That helps to a certain extent to get you free of that if you can find a way to minimize it. And do your own research, challenge, ask questions. And thanks for watching, guys. Like, subscribe, leave a comment if you have any questions. I'm always happy to get back in touch with you guys. Next week, be on the lookout for a podcast with The Thinking Atheist with Seth Andrews. I did an interview with him a couple weeks ago. That podcast is going to air very shortly. So I will put a link on the blog, and when it comes out, I'll update this video description and I'll put the link below. So check that out. It'll be a lot of fun. Thanks. Have a good one.